Hello, my name's Richard Felix, and I'm going to take you on a tour of haunted Cornwall. Cornwall, land of myths, legends, fairies, piskies, and of course ghosts. And what better place to start this tour than here at Land's End. Land's End was believed to be the entrance to the mystical place called Lioness, which over 900 years ago crumbled away and was engulfed by the sea, becoming another Atlantis. And the old fishermen say that when they're sailing around the Seven Stones Lighthouse, they can sometimes still see the pinnacles of the rooftops of the houses, and on a dark, stormy night, they say that they can still hear the sound of the ghostly bells of the churches ringing in their ears. So, settle back, turn down those lights, and let me take you on a ghostly tour of haunted Cornwall. This is one of the most evocative, magical, atmospheric places, I would say, in the whole of Cornwall. I'm sitting on the grass seats, stone underneath me of course, at the Minack Theatre. It's 40 years since I've been here, and I came here basically because I wanted to see the bay of Porthcurno with that beautiful turquoise green water. I hoped there would be a ghost story here, being such a magical place, and of course there is. I went to the visitor centre and asked them, have you got a ghost? And the lady said to me, well, yes, I think we have. This place was created by a lady called Rowena Cade in 1932. She lived at the big house here at the top of Porthcurno Bay. She was very keen on amateur dramatics, and she actually had a play done in her garden of the house. It was Midsummer Night's Dream, of course. Then she wanted to put on another play, The Tempest, and she thought, what better place than down here on the rocks of her garden. She built this theatre, the Minack Theatre. The first play was held here in 1932, and it then took her another 50 years to complete this magnificent theatre here. And the lady, who strangely enough was the daughter of Rowena Cade's first gardener, told me that on many, many occasions in the visitor centre, things go missing. She also said to me that there is a rock down there, of course, called the Minack Rock, and they say that when the sun is setting at certain times, that rock looks exactly like a monk with a hood. And legend has it that there was once a monastery here. But the lady also said to me that things go missing, things move of their own accord. We're talking of poltergeist activity. And she says whenever it happens, I always blame Rowena. And I would imagine that Rowena Cade still haunts this place that she built, this place that she loved so much. And so why do ghosts haunt? Why do we see ghosts? I think there's various reasons. There are different sorts of ghosts. There are real ghosts, spirits, souls, entities that for whatever reason are still lingering around a place. Perhaps because they loved a person very much, perhaps because they loved a place and it was their lifelong dream, as in the case here, of course, of Rowena. Other ghosts, I think, haunt possibly because they're trapped. Because in an ideal world, we should all go off to where all good souls go. Sometimes they get trapped. And so some of these ghostly apparitions, knockings and tappings are in fact trapped souls that's trying to get our attention, to tell us that they need to be sent off to where they should go, to the light. Then, of course, I believe there is the recording. And I believe a tragic and traumatic death can sometimes be recorded in the fabric. But of course, you have to be alive to make that recording. It's a recording made just before death takes place. The energy used by the body in resisting death can be so immense that the fabric contains that recording. Bricks, woodwork, plaster, but especially stone. I believe that stone holds certain properties very similar to recording tapes. And then for some reason, possibly on the anniversary of the death, or of course, when the atmosphere is similar, that recording is released and certain gifted people see it again. Ian, I recognise you. And it wasn't that long ago that we met at Pengersick, was it?
2 weeks, end of February.
Yeah, no wonder I recognise. Yeah. Now, tell me, you have your finger in lots of ghostly pies. I'm right, yeah?
That. Yes, I do a lot of things.
You do, obviously, the ghost walk here.
Indeed.
In Penzance.
Yeah.
You also do another one somewhere else, which we're going to have a look at in a bit. Yeah. And, of course, a ghostly castle as well.
Yeah, Pengersick Castle in Penzance.
Wow. Now, here, of course, we've met here for a reason. This is the Dolphin. Very haunted place.
Certainly one of the most haunted inns I've ever come across.
And they sell beer.
They certainly do.
So I think we'd be a lot better off inside, don't you? Let's go and have a look. So, Ian, we're inside the Dolphin, one of the many haunted rooms. I mean, it's one of the most haunted inns, is it not, in the area?
I believe so. I mean, the problem with pubs, often they claim to be haunted, and often there's no real evidence that they are. You know, they sell a few pints from it.
It brings customers, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. A good story is going to sell a few pints. It's always a good publicity thing. But the Dolphin is one of the few pubs that I do genuinely believe actually is haunted, because so many different things happen regularly to independent people saying the same things, that it does seem to be one of the pub stories that may have a little bit more credence than the others.
It's a genuine place, in other words.
Yeah, I definitely believe so. Definitely.
And what have we? Anything in here, or?
This room is claimed to have at one stage been a courtroom.
Oh right, Judge Jeffreys.
That's the claim.
Here again.
Again, historically, we're not too sure if that's genuine. But the claim is that he would hold court in this area. A lot of people were convicted and so on. Strange things do happen in here. People get atmospheres, strange feelings. We've actually in the past captured a few strange light anomalies as well. You know, orbs of light and so on.
Oh right.
So there may well be something in this room.
Yeah. So you've actually got something on sort of taken by digital.
Yeah, digital camera.
Really?
As that is, you know, usually digital cameras will be the things to pick these things up, and some orbs of light in this very room.
Right, and of course, one of the most famous ones is obviously we're on the seafront. We're here at Penzance. Yes, we're talking smugglers. We're talking sailors, sea captains, and stuff like that. Yeah,
that's exactly it. There's a very famous story about a sea captain with the tricorn hat, sailors' clothes, etc., wandering around the building. There are stories of smuggling. Yeah. Certainly years ago, they found a couple of old oak casks of alcohol in a hidden room, and dragging noises are heard, footsteps from upstairs, all that type of stuff. It's very much linked with the sea. I mean, right by the harbour, inevitably it would be.
Exactly.
But certainly the stories are very, very endearing and been going on a very long time.
So it was a haven, basically, for smugglers, of course, in those days.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there were actually tunnels underneath the building which they would have brought the contraband through. In fact, one of these tunnels collapsed a few years ago, just around the corner. Unfortunately, they're mostly sealed off now.
Oh, what a shame.
It is a shame. We could have popped down there.
Absolutely.
But, they do seem. It does seem that they would have brought it through through these tunnels, the contraband, into the hidden rooms, maybe upstairs.
Those barrels are still there, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
That's amazing, yeah. So basically, we are talking of a genuinely haunted pub.
As far as you can tell, genuine with ghosts, it's always very difficult to
nobody can prove anything, can they?
Exactly, that's the problem. But it's as good a case as any other pub to be a genuine story.
So in this case, it's not just the spirits behind the bar?
Probably not.
Wonderful. Right, now, obviously, we're now very much down below. We're in the cellars of the old Dolphin, and go on then, Ian. Things in here, I presume?
Yeah, very much so. Always described as very atmospheric, very cold, very eerie. There is a story claiming that back in the 18th century, a young man who lived here fell into a pit, a hole in the cellar itself, and died.
Yeah.
He's described as a man with incredibly white blonde hair. Ever since, a lot of people have claimed to have seen him in this very cellar, walking through. They come running upstairs claiming to have seen him. Members of staff run down to see what they've seen. Maybe it's an intruder.
Yeah.
There's no one there. No exit, nowhere to go.
Brilliant. So in other words, the people that see him obviously believe him to, at first, to be the usual story, a real person.
Absolutely. Very solid, very real looking.
Yeah.
You know, mistaken for exactly just a normal human being.
And then he does something strange. I mean, does he vanish through the wall, or does he just disappear? What
tends to happen is people immediately, often they've only just been employed here, they've seen him, they run up to explain that there's an intruder, someone they don't recognise, find out who he is, and by the time they've come down, he's disappeared. And they always comment and they always say he's got this incredibly white blonde hair.
Yeah, so it's the same person every time.
It would seem to be, yeah. The description seems to be the same, you know, each and every occasion.
Crikey. And of course, lots and lots of ghostly footsteps.
Footsteps are intrinsically linked with this pub. Stories for many years. I think these are, of course, members of staff wanting.
Yeah, of course.
But footsteps are heard very frequently here. In fact, I've heard them myself on one occasion.
Really?
Yes, I was here on one occasion and I heard footsteps. I joked to the barman saying, "Oh, there goes the footsteps," thinking it was somebody upstairs.
Yeah.
And he said, "There's no one up there." I asked if I could check. I went up, and there was nobody there.
Amazing. Fantastic. Right, Ian, no ghostly video, certainly of any county, will be complete without a good graveyard story.
Of course not, no.
And I presume that's why we're here.
Exactly, this place has a very endearing, very long-standing ghost story related to it.
Must say, just before we start, I have never been in an English graveyard with palm trees before.
I don't think there's too many others around, to be honest with you.
Amazing. Anyway, sorry, on with the story.
Yeah, well, firstly, I'd just like to mention that you are standing on a cholera grave, cholera pit.
Thank you.
I'm glad that you moved away, because there have been several people in the past who have walked across or stood here and have felt very unwell, feelings of sickness, dizziness, etc. That might be the reason in that case. But also, as soon as this was built here, which was, like I say, 1832,
right,
strange things started happening in this very churchyard, St Mary's churchyard. Mostly a strange white figure has been seen, described as very sinister looking, almost gliding that much off the ground. Actually, in this area behind me, just
more or less
here.
Where the palm tree is.
Yeah, more or less, actually. Yeah, pretty much. People have heard doleful noises, groaning sounds, a lot of things on those lines. But it's one of these stories that's persisted throughout the years, over 170 years, of different people claiming very similar stories.
Right.
The local newspapers have reported on it. People see it very frequently.
So, in other words, we're talking of something that lots of stories hasn't been seen since 1920. This is an ongoing
right up
story.
To date. I mean, as recently as about a year and a half ago, somebody wrote into the local newspaper claiming to have walked through here and seen this white figure just over here.
Really?
Believed very much that they'd seen a ghostly figure.
Yeah. And you have actually got some newspaper cuttings?
Yeah, certainly, yeah.
Which you could let us have?
I could indeed, yeah, no problem.
Fantastic. And Ian, we've arrived very much so at Pengersick Castle. Ron here, of course, who I met last time I was here. And now it's your job, gentlemen. No point in me saying anything, although I know a lot of the stories because I've been here.
Of course,
it's far better if you would take me on a whistle-stop tour of, well, come on, this is just atmosphere, isn't it? Yeah. Tell me about the history, quickly, about what happened here. And
well, there's an immense amount of it, but basically the tower itself was built in about 1500. There's all kinds of history, murder, intrigue, terror, all kinds of things have happened in this castle. It is by many claims the most haunted location in the country, let alone Cornwall. Let's go in and find out.
That's what we want. Great stuff. Now, it was of course a lot bigger, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, because it was all the way around out the back there.
Yeah, and it was ruined, demolished, and
yeah, it's been a ruin. I mean, the wall, you can just see the bit of the wall left there.
Yeah.
Just to go along the top over there.
Yeah.
Down past those trees, and just down past where the beehive is.
Yeah. So it was a big place.
Yeah.
Yep. In this way.
Yep. Through the door there.
Is there anybody in? Lead on, Macduff. You know the way better than I do. Fantastic spiral stair. I mean, this is obviously one of the towers, I presume, of the old castle.
Well, it was the only tower.
Really? And my goodness me, into, if I remember rightly from the most haunted days, this is the solar room.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's just solar.
Right.
It was the sitting room.
Yeah.
And that over there, the garderobe where they used to keep the commodes.
Of course. Yeah. Amazing. Ghosts?
Well, there's a not very nice presence hangs around that corner.
Oh yeah.
There's not a very nice presence by this clock, between the window and the clock. That's a woman. That's a male.
Yeah.
It's over there where it's just here. And there was a girl here. And you literally saw a hair being lifted over her head and thrown back.
All right.
And the one there had her breast squeezed.
Oh boy!
And she screamed. You never heard her scream like it, but Ian came flying in. Thought there'd been an accident.
I was outside a good 50 yards away and I heard this scream. Thought, what the hell's going on? Came running in and then I found out what had happened.
They were with you?
no one anywhere near her. You know, I mean, the rest of the group, I think I had 8 that night. But the rest of them were around. And she was there.
My gosh.
Now, fortnight ago, was it fortnight, 3 weeks? 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, about 3 weeks, yeah.
About 3 weeks ago, we had another woman in here. Now, I've been talking to her upstairs.
Yes.
Before she came here, and she had a clean blue, light blue anorak on. And she came running up like the clappers. And on the front of it, you could see where there was a wrist and a very large hand, bigger than mine. And also one on her belly. And but the funny thing is, on the end of those fingers, it was just as though someone had dipped their hands in flour and gone like that.
There were marks on her.
Yeah. And on the end of 3 of the fingers, they were like claws. So I think that what's happened is that she'd had a lower entity at her, one of the lower entities that get in occasionally.
Oh my goodness me.
And
she didn't like that,
She was not amused.
My God! And tell me that
the thing is, she wants to come back to see. You know, to see.
People do come back for more. You know.
Yeah.
What about the lady that was fondled? Did she continue?
She was fondled. No, the thing is, her sister was here at the same time, and she took a photograph.
Yeah.
And she's got two, isn't it? 2 big orbs on the side of.
Yeah.
Oh really?
Side. And then upstairs, she had her vagina pressed while she was sitting down on a box up there. And her sister took a photograph then as she, she more or less said, ooh.
Yeah.
And her sister took a photograph then, and there's a great big orb.
Again, so
Again.
The first manifestations, if you like, of a spirit or something that
The
possibly...
orbs, an orb is the remnants of human life.
Yeah.
You can get an orb, that people say, oh, it's dust, or it's this,
Oh, I know.
it's that.
Yeah, but not
But
big...
if you have a look at an actual spirit orb, then you'll find it's got a nucleus,
Yes.
and all the way around it's got a particular cellular structure makeup,
Yeah.
and then it's got varied colours depending on what vibration it is. For instance, further up in the grounds, in the healing woman's bothy, where we always get the same sort of orb, it's a beautiful green going to turquoise, which is a very healing colour.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, this is not the only haunted room, is it?
No.
Shall we carry on up to the next
Yeah, let's go up to the
floor?
bedroom.
Okay.
Why not?
After you, Ron.
Okie dokie.
Now, this, gentlemen, is the room where I was standing when we were doing some filming, and we were talking about someone that choked.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah, where were you standing?
I was standing over here, at the back, trying to keep out of the way.
Yeah.
And as Derek Akora mentioned the word choking, I kid you not, I was standing and I started to well up, and I was going, I don't want to cough, I don't want to do anything. And I had to actually run out, basically because I didn't want to spoil what they were filming.
Yeah.
And as I went down the stairs, I was reaching and choking and coughing, and I've never experienced anything quite like it. In fact, they stopped filming, they came down to me. It was amazing.
It's not the first time that sort of thing's happened.
We had four women and a man, didn't we?
Yeah.
On Thursday.
Last
But that
Saturday.
choking was that. You were doing the visor, weren't you? And where she had a vagina interfered with, on that chest over there.
there was a man. Something came right out the corner and felt exactly as if he was being strangled. There was like a feeling of choking around the front. Yeah. Very, very similar to what you said you experienced as well.
In here.
And that particular corner is also a place where we've had people pushed, pinched, touched in different ways. We've had knocking coming from there. There was even another film crew who came here and captured on infrared camera a strange image on the screen, just like a figure in blues and cold. Same place. There is certainly
thermal imaging.
And again, does anybody know who haunts this room or what?
Well, there's in this room. I'll tell you what you've got now. Hang on a minute. Let's just get myself together. Eight-year-old girl, the nurse, 13-year-old girl, 2 women on the bed. 4-year-old boy is behind there. There's Hannah. By that van.
Oh my God!
Woman on the wall. There's a man lying down there. I'll show you that man.
Oh, come on, man! Now look, these are your dowsing rods, yes? And with these, you can actually pick up energy, an entity.
Yeah. He measured these and put me on his head.
Look at him!
There's his head. All right, check me on his body. That'll be his hips.
Oh, I don't believe this.
The top of his leg. His knee.
Now, I can see you're not doing that. I mean,
Bottom of his leg. His ankle. No.
Ron.
He was stabbed and he was strangled.
When we started, was that this is one of the most haunted places, certainly in Cornwall, and the way we're going, the number of ghosts and everything else, we're saying possibly in the whole country. I've never experienced anything like this.
No, there's not many places that have.
There's a difference between a ghost and a presence.
Oh yes, I realise that. Yeah.
But I suppose most people like to think of them as ghosts, don't they?
Yes, indeed. Yeah. But I tell you what, I mean, this is the first time I've seen anything quite like that, and it's incredible. Ron, it's been an absolute privilege and a pleasure to meet you. Thank you very much indeed.
It's
fantastic. Right, it's getting dusk. We're at St Ives on the beach. Pity we didn't bring our swimming trunks, but that's another story. This is your main source of business, if you like, the St Ives Ghost Walk.
St Ives Ghost Walks are very, very popular, and we tend to get a lot of people on them, yeah.
Yeah, mainly visitors, I would imagine, surely, tourists.
Yeah, I'd say over 90% of visitors. A few local people as well, but yeah, certainly mostly visitors.
And why are we standing on the beach here at St Ives?
Well, there is a very interesting story about this very beach. This is actually called Porthgwydden Beach.
Right.
And the story goes that just over 100 years ago, there was a man who lived in the town of St Ives who owned what was described as a very beautiful white horse. And he would ride it everywhere he went, and every evening he would come and ride right down onto Porthgwydden Beach. He would get off the horse, dismount, and go for a quick swim in the sea.
Yeah. One
evening, people walking past the beach saw this horse just standing here a long time after usually they'd long gone home.
Yes. Because obviously people got used to the time that he was here.
Yeah, he became a very familiar
face. And we better move up a bit.
Yeah, we better move up a bit before we end up the next victims. But they realised that something must have happened for the horse to still be there. And as it turned out, tragically, this poor man had drowned just in the sea behind us now. The horse, they tried to get him away from the beach. He stubbornly wanted to stay here. He was obviously waiting for his owner. And eventually they had to drag him away, and he was taken to a stables here in St Ives where he lived for the rest of his days. Here's where the story gets interesting. Just after the horse died, people in this area started claiming to see a white horse walking down Island Road, heading towards this beach, and actually saw it standing on Porthgwydden Beach itself. Some even claimed to see the horse standing here for some time, before eventually galloping back the way it had come, back down Island Road, but with a difference. People then claimed that there was somebody sat on the horse's back, the figure, of course, of a man. They believed that the horse was now coming back, now in spirit form, collecting his owner, and the two of them were going back the way they always did, the way they would have done if this tragedy hadn't occurred. And even today, sightings now are relatively rare, but people still today often hear horses' footsteps, particularly in Island Road and the areas towards the beach. It is a very common thing to hear, especially people living here, staying nearby, or even just having a wander down Island Road. A lot of people hear these strange clippity clops going down the street.
Wow, that is quite an interesting story. So both man and horse actually come back here in spirit form?
Yeah, that certainly is the claim.
Yeah.
And a lot of local people, it's become a very well-known story. A lot of local people would swear absolutely that it is a genuine story.
That's a lovely one. Wow. Now, anywhere else around here?
Yeah, I think I'll take you to another place quite nearby.
Okay. And story number 2?
Yeah, this has to be the most famous ghost story in St Ives, if not the whole of this area.
All right.
It all starts years ago with a shipwreck, and tragically there's been all too many of those in this area over the years.
Yeah.
I mean, there's even, just in passing, a couple of stories about phantom ships, ghostly tall ships that are said to be seen heading across this very bay, St Ives Bay. There's stories about bells and all kinds of things. Yeah. But getting back to the story that I want to tell you about here right now, the shipwreck happened a long time ago, several centuries ago. And during a terrible storm just over there in the distance, a boat heading into St Ives Harbour started going down underneath the water.
Yeah.
Several local fishing boats very, very bravely headed out in an attempt to rescue the people in danger. Reasonably successful operation. Most people, I'm glad to say, were saved during the course of this. However, while this rescue operation was taking place, in all genuineness, one of the worst tragedies you could ever imagine happened just over there. A young woman was being passed between the stricken vessel and, of course, a fishing boat, carrying her infant baby, an infant child. And as she was being passed across, this child desperately slipped from her grasp, falling straight into the sea. With the conditions, the storm, the raging waters, everyone had this feeling of absolute dread, because nobody could survive, what would happen in that water, let alone a poor innocent child. And although they tried to search as long as hard as they could, in the end they had to give up. A very solemn crew headed into St Ives Harbour. The mother, it said, came straight back and started searching this whole area, this here, and particularly the island just over there.
Yeah.
Hoping desperately against hope that the child would somehow be washed up safely. She carried this on for several days, day and night, carrying a lantern, looking in the rocks, searching, desperately seeking.
As you would.
Of course you would. Anybody naturally would. Unfortunately, in the end, another tragedy occurred. This poor woman also died. Many believed it might have been a broken heart. Others said it was the sheer exertion of being here, looking day and night, no sleep, no rest. That took its toll. She was buried in an area called Barnum Cemetery here in St Ives, and ever since, and this is why this is such a famous story, people have been claiming to be in this area and also over there on the island, and have seen late at night a mysterious light, flickering, slowly moving across the rocks. When they approach, many have claimed to see a young woman carrying a lantern. Yet when they go to ask her who she is, what she's doing there that time of night, disappeared. Others have just seen the light, the same thing. It seems to just vanish. The reason it's still a famous story today, and it is a very well-known story, people are still seeing this light. Mysterious, they approach, it disappears. It's not a cigarette, it's not a flashlight. No one can explain it. Maybe, as some suggest, and it would be awful if it's true, maybe her sad spirit is still here today, still searching this
looking for
area.
that poor baby, that poor child.
Exactly.
Wow. Now, Ian, you do these ghost walks throughout the summer?
Yeah, we do.
Here and Penzance, I presume?
We run from March to October, several nights a week, depending on the time of year.
Yeah. Just people just turn up, I presume, at a certain time?
Yeah, we start at the Tourist Information Centre here in St Ives, where people can get a leaflet with more information. They just come along. We'll be happy to meet them, and we'll take them around and tell them a lot more stories than you've heard on the video
today. Of course, yeah. Ian, thank you very much indeed, sir.
Pleasure
it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Richard.
Right. Right, well, here we are, nicely settled in. We're in the lounge of Mount Haven, near Penzance. With me, Orange, you're the co-owner of the hotel.
UK Richard.
Hi, and also we have Janet with us. Now, this is revolutionary because I believed that we were coming to a haunted hotel. I was going to spend the night here. Goodness knows what was going to happen. But it was a haunted hotel wasn't it, orange?
It certainly was, Richard.
But
yeah.
it ain't now.
No, Richard, it isn't. Janet and I are light workers, and when I took over the Mount Haven Hotel, the place was full of all sorts of discarnate spirits. Some of them were completely benevolent, and there were a few very nasty entities around that had obviously been tied up with witchcraft and animal sacrifice in the past. They were causing a bit of trouble, especially in my personal area.
Yeah.
And one of my children was being very badly affected, and a few people had come and done bits of work here. They'd had to move on an entity from there that was in great distress, but you know, it just kept on and on and on. There were so many. You'd be sitting in the old dining room downstairs, and they were just floating about all over the place. And being someone that works with the light, and I'm here because the energy from St Michael's Mount is so powerful, and it's an energy I wanted to work with for healing.
Yes.
I knew it was very important to move these beings on.
Yes.
You know, these were beings I understand as they're stuck. You know,
Yep.
when they've passed over, they haven't gone to the light, and they're stuck, and they're generally unhappy and need moving on. In the end, Janet walked in here one day, you know, as fate would have it, and we discussed the fact that, you know, I'd had different people in and had different work done, but, you know, it was just endless.
Yeah.
You know, it's going back hundreds of years, and so Janet offered to take on the job of doing the healing work, of moving these spirits on and clearing the space totally for me,
Right.
and helping me to hold
And of course
it
she
like
did
that.
do that.
Oh, she certainly did.
So, come on, Janet. How do you do that?
Well, the most important thing that you do is look at it as a healing.
Yeah.
That is actually what it is. Because when beings move on from incarnate life and they move into the death process, what they are supposed to do is move onwards.
Right.
They are supposed to move to another dimension of light, and they are supposed to go through certain processes in order that they can evolve and grow.
Yes.
But what happens with a lot of them is, but because perhaps they have died in very dreadful circumstances, very difficult circumstances, or there has been suicide, murder, witchcraft, or whatever, it's rather like going along a railway track and the soul has gone into a siding. And
Yes.
into a shed.
But by accident, if you like.
By
Or,
accident, in a way, yes. And they have got trapped and they're stuck and they cannot move.
right.
And that for them is really atrocious.
Yeah.
I deal with them with love and compassion, and I deal with it as a healing. And a lot of them are very scared to move on into the light. And the reason that they are so terrified is that they think they are going to meet some great judgmental God who is going to come down very heavily on them and say, oh, you're going to be punished for
Punish
this,
them for their
punish them.
sins.
Exactly. And that is not what happens at all.
No, in other words, of course, that's man-made.
Yes.
Or should I say
That is
church-made?
It
Or
is a misconception, because that is not what happens. In fact, what happens is truly wonderful. First of all, when a being actually goes from this life, they go into something called the bardo, the interlife, and they go through an overlife review. So that they review the whole of the life.
Themselves.
Themselves. They actually see what they have done, what they have thought, and they see their good deeds and their misdeeds,
Oh, yes,
if you like.
yes.
And then they have to move on to a process whereby they have to decide on the next stage of their being.
Yes.
And the only being who actually makes the judgment on what they should do is themselves.
Yes.
Nobody else does it for them.
So there should have no fear whatsoever,
None whatsoever.
of going on,
None.
of going to the light.
And this is what I explain.
The only
to
judgment
them.
will be from themselves.
Exactly. And one of the ways that I help to move them on is to bring in their ancestors, because their ancestors have already been through
And
it.
they can tell them.
They can tell them. So when
Wow.
I create the pathways of light and I open the vortices of light in order for them to move onwards, I bring their ancestors in with their hands outstretched, if you like, and love there, and say, it's okay to move, it's fine, it'll be all right. No matter what you have done, it's okay. Because it is all about love and forgiveness and redemption. And no matter whether the soul is what you might term malevolent or whether it is benevolent, forgiveness is the important thing.
And of course, whatever it is, whether it's dark or not, it craves the light.
Exactly. They long to go back to the light.
Of course.
because the light is their source.
Yeah. So really, what we're saying is that all the folks up and down the country and all around the world, actually, that are obviously making something out of ghosts. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever, but really and truly what they should also be doing is helping them.
Is looking at a way that they can be moved on. Because really, if you don't do that, it's like putting them into a prison cell, turning the lock, and
leaving
away
them.
the key, and leaving them.
It's a little bit like...
You wouldn't leave a child or a dog dying on a
No,
motorway.
you wouldn't.
It's just
No,
the same.
and also it's a little bit like letting the animals out of the zoo.
It is, in a way.
Because that's what we're doing. We're viewing them, paying money to look at them at haunted places. Nothing wrong with the stories, but for goodness sake, release them.
Release them, because they want to go. And nobody can ever tell me that they don't, because the only reason they don't want to is because of this fear.
Yeah.
You take away the fear, and they are so happy
of course,
to move onwards.
Yeah. So in other words, you're probably not the most popular person in Cornwall.
Probably not.
Because you're actually like a big vacuum, sucking them up and sending them to where they should go. That has been enlightening for me. It's something very similar to what I've believed, but to speak to someone else that actually is doing it has been fantastic. So you think that I'll probably have quite a good night's sleep tonight?
Oh, I think you'll sleep very well.
Wonderful.
And I wouldn't try and do this work yourself, by the way.
No, I won't. I shall have to come back and speak to Janet.
With pleasure.
Ladies, thank you very much. Now, in my usual way, I've come across something rather unusual. This is a dead man's hut at Portreath, but unfortunately it's locked. But of course, undaunted, I want to get in it, and the window's open, so I'm going to have a go. And of course, yes, didn't know whether I could do this. As you get older, you know, it's not so easy. I'm inside a dead man's hut. This is only the second one I've ever been into in my life. I found another one on the Coffin Trail in Swaledale. But here we are at Portreath. This is, well, not very big. And it was used as a temporary mortuary. And basically when drowned sailors were washed up on the beach here at Portreath, given up by what was known as the cruel widowmaker, the sea. The bodies were brought here and left to await pickup by their friends and of course their relatives. Some of course were collected and taken away and buried. Others stayed here for a long time. Some, unfortunately, were never ever collected. And their bodies were then eventually taken away and buried. And all that they had to remember them by, a gravestone that said, an unknown seaman. And such stories, of course, create ghost stories as well. And there is a story of a figure that stands in this building. Not me, a figure wearing old-fashioned clothing. They believe it to be a sailor. He stands looking forlornly out of the window. I presume that he's waiting for his loved ones to come and collect him and give him a decent burial. But I presume because he's still here that no one's ever bothered, and he's still waiting, still hanging around. There's rather a strange atmosphere in here. It's a sunny day in May, quite warm outside, but it's decidedly cold inside here, inside this dead house at Portreath. Well, I managed to get out somehow. Portreath, like so many fishing villages, coves in Cornwall of course, were havens for smugglers. And this place, like so many others, has got many, many stories of ships being wrecked, of people bringing contraband off the beach and hiding it in their houses, of tunnels that go from the beach to various places, to cottages, fishermen's cottages, and of course also stories abound of smugglers that are fighting each other, killing their mates, burying them in the sand and leaving them. And there is of course here a story of a place called Smuggler's Cottage. We'll go and find that hopefully in a minute, but I've just noticed that round the corner here, just to prove that everything I tell you on these videos is true, this tells you that this building up here was in fact the Lower Pilot's Lookout at Portreath, and underneath it says the Dead Man's Hut, and it actually says this building was the lower of the points controlling access into Portreath Harbour via a flag signalling system. The macabre name by which it is still known locally derives from its use as a temporary mortuary whenever a body was given up by the sea. So as you can see, it's all true. I'm in a cave on Portreath Beach. I told you earlier of the story of smugglers and Smuggler's Cottage and a tunnel, and I actually didn't think, I don't like this, I didn't really think that I would find something like this, but this tunnel reputedly leads round to the left and actually into Smuggler's Cottage, which we've also found. It's so dark in here, and I got my back to whatever's in there, and of course remember, I'm telling ghost stories. I really do not like it in here, and I am coming out. I can't get through that way, I daren't, plus the fact that the sand has come up over the years and it's made it so low. But I believe this to be the cave, the tunnel or what have you, where the smugglers would unload the contraband, as the boats of course would come in here in the dead of night, unload the brandy, the gin, the tobacco and whatever else, and then haul it up the beach through that cave entrance carved out in the rocks and round the back to the Smuggler's Cottage. But Smuggler's Cottage is just round the corner, so I think it'd be a good idea if we wandered round this way and found it. Of course, on many occasions there would be customs men here when they'd had a tip-off. There could well be raging battles going on between the troops, the soldiers, the customs men and of course the smugglers. How many people possibly died here on this beach, nobody knows. There were of course also many stories of smugglers falling out with each other, killing each other, cutting their throats and leaving them for dead, possibly, I don't know, in that tunnel or casting them out to sea. But here in front of me now is the original Smuggler's Cottage. It used to be a guest house, but it isn't anymore. An incredible story. When they were renovating the place, they found a secret room, as of course you would have, wouldn't you, in a smuggler's cottage. But in that room was a table, a big old sea chest, and a sword, a rusty sword, still on the table. But worse than that, sitting on a chair, or what was sitting on the chair, was a pile of bones, a skeleton of a man. And on many, many occasions, people at the guest house were troubled seeing a man in his early 20s wearing what they described as Jacobean clothing, wandering along the corridors, wandering into people's bedrooms, keeping them awake at night. And they say that it is the ghost of one of the smugglers that for whatever reason was trapped or locked into the secret room, never of course came out again, and died in that room. The sword and the table, when they were found, were actually given to Exeter Museum. I haven't been to check, but when we do Ghosts of Devonshire, I'll be at that museum to see if that sword and that table are still there. But in the meantime, we can't get in, unfortunately. It's now a private house. I wonder if they still see the ghost. And no video of ghosts of Cornwall could possibly be complete without coming to Jamaica Inn.
Yep.
With me, Peter, you're the curator.
I'm the curator
of the museum.
Of Daphne du Maurier's museum and also the Smuggling Museum. Yep.
Right. Just very quick, I mean, this is extremely old. Coaching Inn, I presume?
Yes, a coaching inn built in 1724, between 1724 and 1726.
Yeah.
To service the new turnpike, the new road.
Which, of course, is this road.
Yeah, yeah, it's much higher than it used to be.
Yep.
By something like 5 or 6 feet.
Right.
But in fact, this was the first tar macadam road in the world.
Right.
At the time that the road was being built, the macadam was a captain in the Royal Navy, and he was in charge of victualling down at Falmouth,
right,
in the west. And he'd been experimenting with his new concoction, tarmac.
Yes.
And he was allowed to use tarmac for the first time on a road
here.
Just here. Yeah.
Well.
Yeah.
And so there's a bit of history. So ghosts, tell me that. I know there's a ghost of a sailor.
Well,
or
we think he may be a sailor. He looks dressed typically as a sailor would be, say, in the middle of the 19th century.
Yeah.
That sort of
yeah.
period.
Sitting on the wall?
Sitting on the wall, walking around slowly in the courtyard here. Nothing very dramatic about him. He just looks like a normal person, although slightly strangely dressed.
Yes, of course.
Next time you look, he's gone.
Yeah. Old story.
Yeah.
And there must be more, though, because I mean, a place of this antiquity has obviously
absolutely,
got lots on them, I should think.
There are various, reports over the years, but the most frequently reported, and it goes on and on and on, lots and lots of people have seen this guy, is a rather short, stout chap, very much older dress, probably, the late 18th century, soon after the inn was built.
Yes.
He appears to wear a very dark green, a Lubbock green jacket, with a beige waistcoat, white shirt, darkish trousers, probably black.
Yeah.
He's about 5'5", 5'6", stockily built.
Average height for the time?
Yeah, absolutely. With greying hair.
Right.
No, he's always reported being a nice guy.
Yeah.
There's nothing nasty about him at all.
Oh, that's nice.
We haven't given him a name, we just call him the Green Man.
And where's he seen? All over?
He's seen all over.
Really?
Yeah, he's been seen always inside. He's never seen outside. But the most frequently reported place of experience his presence is in room 4, which is one of the bedrooms, which I'll take you to later on.
We can go and have a look at that, can we?
Yep, we certainly can.
Oh,
yep.
Can we do that?
Yeah, we can do that.
Excellent. Come on, then. Let's go and have a look. Excellent. Nobody in there at the moment, then? No, that's great. Well, nobody alive in there at the moment.
Alive in there. Okay, well, here we are, Richard. As you can see, the floors are a bit widdish.
Oh, my gosh, look at the levels. Yeah.
Very low. Now, do please mind your head coming in. This would be the average sized door for the average sized person many years ago.
So again, our 5'4" man wouldn't have a problem with that.
No, it'd be a normal size.
Yeah.
We've got an oil painting here.
That's magic.
Some time ago. Right, showing how the inn was probably some time back. There's the calfing shed.
Yes, that's the oldest bit, is it not?
Yeah. And this is the oldest bit.
Yep.
This is the stable.
Yes.
And that, of course, wouldn't have been there.
No.
It was where the horses went through.
Gotcha.
And the top level, which is now the manager's flat, would have been a hayloft.
Yep.
You can see all the ironwork outside how the inn originally.
And of course, that area now is where you're situated, which is the Daphne du Maurier Museum, Smuggling Museum.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Right.
So let's go into room 4.
Let's just do that.
Which has it that this is the most haunted room in the house.
Right.
Mind your head, though.
Yep. Wow.
Here we are.
Now, I must be honest, there's nothing that grabs me, for want of a better word. No. It's a bit like that, isn't it? But so, who's seen him in here? Or
Right. Well, some years ago, when I was the bar's manager here, we had staying with us a young couple in their late 20s, early 30s. They were both solicitors. They were from Bournemouth.
Yeah.
Now, they were fairly hard-nosed people. They were staying here for 3 nights. And on the first evening, as one does, chatting at the bar. They asked me about ghosts, and I told them that there were no ghosts. Obviously, you don't broadcast the fact.
No, especially in those days, yeah.
If they're sympathetic or not. No, no ghosts here. There's one or two odd noises creaking around, that sort of thing. But, you know, there's... But the following evening I saw them in the bar, and the young guy said to me, he said, I thought you said there were no ghosts here.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what makes you ask that? And he said, well, last night we had a most peculiar experience here.
Right.
And evidently they were sleeping after the conversation with me, and they heard this racket outside in the courtyard. And the noises they heard appeared to be in a foreign language.
Right.
And they thought there must be a party staying here.
Yes.
But the noises coming from outside were a bit strange, in as much as he remembered that we had cobbles outside.
Yeah, of course.
But he could hear what sounded like iron shod wheels in gravel. So he got out of bed, which I believe was this one.
Yep.
His wife was still asleep, looked out the window, right? Absolutely nothing. Just the sodium's illuminating, but the noise still persisted.
Yes.
This is the first evening. He went back to bed and did not disturb his wife.
Right.
That evening after the conversation, he went to bed. This is his second night of staying, right? Also, that night he had an experience which we discussed the following day. He said to me, there is definitely something amiss with your inn. And he said, being a solicitor, would you know if this inn has an encumbrance placed upon it? I said, please run that by me. And he said, many years ago, if a building or house or whatever was sold, and it was known or it was reputed to have a ghost, in the deeds one had to place this as an encumbrance.
Never heard of that before.
Yes, right. I said, I don't know, but I'll ask the owner, John Watts, and see if he knows anything about it. So I phoned John, and he said, as far as I know, there is no encumbrance. But he knew what I was talking about. He said, but I will make the deeds available to you at the head office in Exeter, which I later saw. There is no encumbrance.
There you say.
But the young solicitor said, if you sold a house or property without declaring a known encumbrance, the new owner could then demand his money back with compensation if it was later transpired that there was a ghost present that people knew about. So in order to effect a sale,
you had to put it in the deeds.
You had to put down if there was a ghost as an encumbrance.
But there was nothing.
There was nothing registered.
But he saw...
Yeah. Now, the second evening, after the clanking wheels and the foreign language, he was lying in bed, and he said he became aware of a presence in the room.
Yes.
Now, again, the sodiums are on, so there was quite a lot of light spill. But of course, being an orange light, it shifts the colour. He woke up and looked, and there, standing at the bottom of the bed, was this tubby figure, the one I described to you, right? And he saw him, they got eye contact, but he said it was the most peculiar vision as such that he had. The guy, he said, for all intents and purposes, appeared to be standing, because of the refraction of the light, in what would be like a block of ice.
Good grief.
So the light was refracted.
Yeah.
And he said he felt no animosity, no threat, as if the old guy was saying, what are you doing here? In a very quizzical but friendly way. Anyhow, he ducked back under the bedclothes.
As you would.
As you would. Looked again. The guy was still there. Leaned over to wake his wife up and said, this you must see. When she woke, he looked and he'd gone. But he saw him twice. Of course, the foreign language he heard was probably Cornish.
Cornish. I thought that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he didn't know, and he probably thought that these cobbles are all original.
Yeah. They're not.
But we put them down about 25 years ago from the dockyards at Devonport. Before then, it was gravel.
Yeah, so everything basically that he said
fell into
place.
Yeah.
Peter?
Yeah.
That is fantastic.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure, and thank you for letting me in.
Thank you.
Thanks very much indeed. I'm at Tintagel. climbing the steps to the top. The way I feel at the moment, we may well be creating a new ghost in Cornwall. Yes, if my heart keeps going or not, I don't know. I'm now right at the top, this magnificent place. We had to do Tintagel if we're doing Cornish ghosts. This is the legendary birthplace of King Arthur. He was reputedly conceived here and born here. People say that they still see the ghost of that legendary king wandering around this place. It has a strange, eerie feel about it. It's a frightening place. It's full of myths and legends, as is the whole of Cornwall. But unfortunately, this castle, built of stone, or even slate as it looks, was built many hundred years after King Arthur had died. Built for Richard, Duke of Cornwall. No one knows why he built such an incredible castle on such a difficult place to build as here. Perhaps he built it because also he knew the legend of his predecessor, King Arthur. My name's Richard Felix, and I'm here at my base at the old county jail in the centre of Derby. This place over the last 150 years has been a place of terror, torment, and of course death. And that's one of the reasons why this place is as haunted as it is. I've chosen Derby as the catalyst for the national ghost tour of Great Britain. Over the last 10 years, I have taken in excess of 95,000 people on a ghost tour somewhere around the Midlands. And of course, have spoken to many of those people on the tours, and of course have realised just how fascinated people are by ghosts. This is the reason that we have chosen to do this tour. The video that you've just watched is a part of that series, but I want your help. If you have a ghost story, then please either email me or write to me at the address that you'll see at the end of this video. Of course, you must remember that after speaking to so many people, I think I have an ability to be able to see through some of the stories, to be able to differentiate between a story that is true or a story that's made up. And of course, you must remember that 8 out of 10 ghost stories can be explained, but it's the other 2 that you've got to worry about. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Do sleep well and don't have nightmares.